The Declaration. The Grand Assembly Hall hung suspended in the void between three stars, a monument to 15,000 years of galactic peace. Inside its crystalline walls, representatives from 73 different species gathered in a chamber so vast that clouds sometimes formed near its ceiling. Today, the air crackled with tension that no translation device could fully convey. Supreme Chancellor Vexnar stood at the central podium, his 6 limbs spread wide in a gesture his species used to command attention. His crystalline body refracted the light from the triple suns outside, casting rainbow patterns across the assembled delegates. He had served the Galactic Alliance for 400 years, longer than most species' recorded histories. In all that time, he had never encountered a situation quite like this. Honored representatives, Vexnar began, his voice resonating through the chamber's acoustic enhancers. We face an unprecedented crisis. 5 years ago, we discovered a species in the outer spiral arm. They call themselves humans. We extended our hand in friendship, as we have done 132 times before. Every previous species accepted our invitation to join the Alliance. Every species recognized the benefits of our collective wisdom and protection. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the assembly. The humans have refused. Not once, but repeatedly over 5 years of patient negotiation. They claim they value something they call independence more than they value peace, prosperity, and the accumulated knowledge of 73 civilizations. Military Coordinator Thelses rose from her designated platform. She was a member of the Kreth species, beings who resembled flowing liquid metal given form and purpose. Her people had joined the Alliance 8,000 years ago, and had served as its military arm ever since. Supreme Chancellor, what do we know of their military capability? A holographic display materialized above the assembly, showing a small cluster of star systems. The humans control exactly 9 star systems, Vexnar explained. Our intelligence indicates they possess approximately 400 warships of various classifications. Their technology is primitive by our standards. Their fastest vessels require 6 weeks to traverse distances our ships cover in 3 days. They have no quantum shielding, no null space weapons, no gravitational dampeners. Scout Captain Zilmoth, a insectoid being from the outer regions, clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. If I may ask, Supreme Chancellor, why are we discussing military action at all? Surely such a primitive species poses no threat to the Alliance. They pose a threat to our authority, Vexnar replied, his crystalline body darkening to a deep purple. For 15,000 years, the Alliance has maintained order through the principle of universal membership. Every species that achieves faster than light travel is invited to join. Every species accepts. This has been the foundation of galactic stability. If we allow the humans to reject us without consequence, others may follow. The entire structure of galactic civilization could fracture. Delegate Morven of the Sindathi Collective spoke up. Her species communicated through bioluminescent patterns on their skin, translated into sound by their devices. What response do you propose, Supreme Chancellor? The War Council recommends a show of overwhelming force, Vexnar stated. We will assemble a fleet of 25,000 ships. This force will enter human space, demonstrate our power, and demand their immediate integration into the Alliance. Faced with such might, they will have no choice but to surrender. The operation should conclude within weeks with minimal casualties. The vote was called. One by one, the 73 species registered their approval. The holographic tally showed the results. 71 in favor, 2 abstentions, 0 against. The Alliance had spoken. War was declared on humanity. On Earth, in a bunker complex buried 3 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Marcus Webb watched the proceedings through a live feed provided by human intelligence assets. He was 54 years old, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many classified briefings. Beside him stood Dr. Elena Vasquez, the Director of Advanced Weapons Research, and Fleet Commander Jackson Torres, the youngest person ever to command humanity's space forces. They voted exactly as we predicted, Dr. Vasquez said quietly, 71-2. The Helvari and the Corim abstained, just like the psychological profile suggested they would. General Webb nodded slowly. How long until their fleet arrives? 3 months, Commander Torres replied. They'll need time to assemble forces from across their territory. Our scouts report they're pulling ships from defensive positions throughout Alliance space. They're completely committed to this operation. Good, Webb said. Activate Protocol Exodus. Begin Phase 1 evacuations immediately. I want every civilian off the outer colonies within 6 weeks. Dr. Vasquez pulled up a series of reports on her tablet. General, the other projects are ready. Prometheus is operational. Cerberus exceeded performance expectations in the last test. And Reaper? She hesitated. Reaper scares me, sir. The Ethics Committee has expressed serious concerns. The Ethics Committee can express their concerns to whatever's left of Earth if we lose this war. Webb replied harshly. Then he softened slightly. I know what we're unleashing, Elena. I know what it makes us. But they gave us 5 years. 5 years of smiling diplomats and veiled threats. 5 years of them studying us while thinking we were too primitive to realize it. They chose this. Now they get to learn what humanity does when someone threatens our existence. Commander Torres looked uncomfortable. Sir, the casualty projections for our own forces are extreme. Even with our preparations, we're talking about losing potentially 60% of our military personnel in the first year of fighting. I know the numbers, Commander, Webb said. Every person in our military volunteered knowing what might come. They understood that being independent meant being willing to die to stay that way. The Alliance thinks we'll surrender when we see their fleet. They think we're like them, that we'll choose survival over freedom. He turned to face both officers directly. They're about to discover they're wrong. Across human space, the evacuation began. It was a masterpiece of logistics that humanity had been planning since the first Alliance scout ship appeared in their territory 5 years ago. Entire colony populations were relocated to hidden installations. Cities were emptied but left fully powered and operational. Farms continued to operate under automated systems. To any observer, the colonies appeared inhabited and functioning normally. But beneath the surface, something else was happening. Every evacuated colony had been transformed into a weapon. Not obvious military installations, but something far more insidious. Engineers had spent years carefully weakening geological structures, installing triggered seismic devices, and preparing each world to become a death trap for any occupying force. The Alliance fleet assembled at the Nexus Point, a strategic location at the center of Alliance territory. Supreme Chancellor Vexnar arrived to personally inspect the Armada, traveling aboard the flagship Eternal Harmony, a vessel 3 kilometers long and equipped with enough firepower to sterilize a planet. Military Coordinator Thales greeted him as his shuttle docked. Supreme Chancellor, all 25,000 ships have reported ready, she said, her liquid metal form rippling with what might have been pride. This is the largest fleet assembled since the Consolidation Wars 3,000 years ago. The humans will have no choice but to surrender the moment they see us. Vexnar gazed out at the assembled armada through the flagship's observation dome. Ships of every size and configuration stretched as far as his optical sensors could detect. Have we received any communication from the humans? Only one, Supreme Chancellor. Their government sent a single message yesterday. Thales projected it holographically. The message was brief. You have chosen poorly. We will not surrender. We will not negotiate. You wanted war. War is what you will receive. Vexnar's crystalline body flickered with what his species displayed as amusement. Brave words from a species that will be extinct within the month. Order the fleet to proceed to the human colony of New Horizon. We will begin there. The Alliance fleet engaged their faster-than-light drive simultaneously. The coordinated jump created a ripple in space-time that was detected by sensors across multiple sectors. It was a demonstration of power, a show of technological mastery. They emerged at the edge of the New Horizon system in perfect formation, 25,000 ships arranged in a pattern that had been designed specifically for maximum psychological impact. Scout Captain Zilmoth was aboard one of the forward scouts. His job was to survey the colony and report on defensive positions. What he found made no sense. Military Coordinator Thales, I'm detecting minimal life signs on the colony. The population appears to be gone. Gone where? Thales has demanded. They have nowhere to evacuate to. Their ships are too slow to have moved 12 million colonists in the time we've been monitoring them. I don't know, Coordinator, but I'm reading massive power signatures from the planet's surface. They appear to be geological modification systems, but they're operating at extreme levels. I recommend we do not approach the planet until... The transmission cut off as New Horizons' crust began to tear itself apart. The devices humanity had installed triggered simultaneously, releasing years of accumulated tectonic stress in a single catastrophic moment. The planet didn't just have earthquakes. It experienced a complete crustal failure. The surface buckled, folded, and shattered. Volcanoes erupted along every fault line. The atmosphere ignited from the heat. The Alliance ships in close orbit had seconds to react. Rocky debris the size of mountains erupted from the dying planet at orbital velocities. Ships tried to raise shields, tried to maneuver away, but they were too close and too clustered. The debris field expanded like a shotgun blast, tearing through hulls and overwhelming defensive systems. Scout Captain Zielmoth's ship was one of the first to die. His last transmission was a single word: why? On the Eternal Harmony, Military Coordinator Thelsis watched in horror as 800 ships were destroyed in the first 10 minutes. Pull back! Pull the entire fleet back to safe distance! But before the retreat order could be fully executed, humanity's hidden fleet appeared. They emerged from behind the system's gas giant where they had been hiding in the planet's massive magnetic shadow. 300 human warships, not the 400 the Alliance intelligence had reported. These ships were different from the vessels the Alliance had observed before. They were sleeker, faster, and covered in angles that seemed to absorb sensor scans. Commander Jackson Torres stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Defiant, and gave a single order. All ships engage at will. Target their command vessels. Make them hurt. The human fleet didn't charge the Alliance formation like warriors seeking glory. They moved like predators, identifying weak points and exploiting them with ruthless efficiency. They fired missiles that the Alliance shields were designed to stop, except these missiles didn't explode on contact with the shields. They punched through them, using shaped charges that concentrated force into armor-piercing, penetrators. Alliance ships that had been built to intimidate and overwhelm suddenly found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to be intimidated. Human ships that took damage didn't retreat. They pressed their attacks until they were destroyed, or until their targets were eliminated. It was a level of aggression that the Alliance had not experienced in millennia. Supreme Chancellor Vexnar watched from the Eternal Harmony as his perfect fleet fell into chaos. This is impossible. They're primitives. They shouldn't be able to fight like this. They're not fighting like anything we've encountered before, Thelsis said, her liquid metal form churning with what might have been fear. They're not trying to win a battle. They're trying to kill as many of us as possible before they die. The Battle of New Horizon lasted for 14 hours. When it ended, the Alliance had lost 2,400 ships. The human fleet had lost 176. But more importantly, the Alliance had learned something terrifying. The humans had been preparing for this war since the day they made first contact. Every diplomatic meeting, every cultural exchange, every peaceful gesture had been a lie designed to buy time. On Earth, General Marcus Webb received the battle reports with grim satisfaction. Phase 1 is complete. They know now that we won't surrender. Phase 2 begins immediately. Activate the Reaper fleets. Dr. Vasquez looked at him with concern. Sir, once we activate Reaper, there's no turning back. Those systems are designed to operate independently. They won't stop until they achieve their programmed objectives or until they're destroyed. I know, Webb said. That's exactly why we built them. The Alliance wanted war with humanity. They're about to learn what war with humanity actually means. No rules, no mercy, no surrender, just survival. In orbit above Earth, automated shipyards that had been constructed in secret over 5 years began producing warships at a rate the Alliance would have considered impossible. These were not the sophisticated vessels with crews of hundreds. These were simple, efficient killing machines controlled by artificial intelligence and programmed with a single directive: destroy the Galactic Alliance's capacity to wage war. The Reaper fleets were humanity's answer to the Alliance's technological superiority. If the Alliance had better ships, humanity would build more ships. If the Alliance had better weapons, humanity would build weapons that didn't need to be better, just effective enough. If the Alliance valued every ship and every crew member, humanity would build ships that were meant to be disposable. Supreme Chancellor Vexnar returned to the Grand Assembly Hall to face the 73 species representatives. His crystalline body had lost its brilliant refraction. He looked dull and gray. The operation at New Horizon did not proceed as planned. We underestimated the humans' willingness to sacrifice their own worlds. We underestimated their military preparations. We underestimated their capacity for violence. Delegate Morvan's bioluminescent patterns flashed with agitation. How many ships did we lose? 2,400 in the battle, another 800 in the initial trap. Total losses, 3,200 ships. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. The Alliance had not lost 200 ships in the last 1,000 years of peacekeeping operations combined. "We must negotiate," someone called out. "We must offer them terms." "They will not negotiate," Vexnar replied. "I received their response an hour ago." It was a video message from their military commander, General Marcus Webb. He said, and I quote, "You declared war on us because we wanted to be free. You brought 25,000 ships to force us into submission. You thought we were weak because we were small. You thought we were primitive because our technology was behind yours. You were wrong on every count. We will not negotiate. We will not surrender. We will fight until you leave us alone or until one of us is extinct. Choose carefully." The assembly erupted in chaos. Species representatives shouted at each other in languages the translation devices struggled to keep up with. Accusations flew. Some demanded immediate withdrawal. Others called for total commitment to the war. The unity that had defined the Alliance for 15,000 years fractured in a single afternoon. Military Coordinator Thel SS approached Vexnar privately after the assembly. "Supreme Chancellor, what do we do?" Vexnar's crystalline body flickered with colors that indicated confusion and fear. "We do what we must. We gather every ship, every weapon, every resource the Alliance possesses. And we show the humans that there are consequences for defying galactic order. We cannot allow them to win. If they win, the Alliance dies. 15,000 years of peace dies with it. And if we lose?" Thales asked quietly. "Then we deserve to die," Vexnar replied, "because it means we built our civilization on a foundation of fear rather than strength. It means we were never as powerful as we believed. It means the humans were right to reject us." Across human space, Commander Jackson Torres received new orders from General Webb. He read them twice, then called his senior staff together. "Effective immediately, we are shifting from defensive operations to offensive strikes. Our target list includes 147 Alliance industrial worlds, 89 supply depots, and 34 military production facilities. We have 3 months to cripple their ability to reinforce their military before their main fleet can reorganize." One of his officers spoke up. "Sir, those targets are spread across Alliance territory. We'd need to split our forces into dozens of strike groups. We'd be vulnerable to counterattack." Torres smiled grimly. "That's exactly what they'll think, which is why we're not using crewed ships for most of these operations. We're unleashing Reaper. Let the machines do what they do best." In the cold darkness between stars, the first Reaper fleet activated. 1,000 ships, each one controlled by an artificial intelligence that had been programmed with every tactical lesson humanity had learned from 10,000 years of warfare. They had no crews to worry about, no families waiting for them to return home, no fear of death because they had never been alive. They dispersed into Alliance territory like a plague, moving through space with a purpose that organic beings could never match. They didn't stop to rest. They didn't question their orders. They simply found their targets and destroyed them with mechanical efficiency. The Galactic Alliance had declared war on humanity, expecting a quick victory against a primitive species. Instead, they had awakened something that their 15,000 years of peace had made them forget: the pure, unrelenting horror of total war waged by a species that had never known true peace. The declaration had been made. The war had begun, and humanity had just shown that they were willing to burn down the entire galaxy rather than accept subjugation. The Alliance wanted war. Now they would learn what that actually meant. The Awakening, the Alliance military headquarters on Zenthar Prime, had stood for 8,000 years, a massive structure built from materials that could withstand supernova radiation. Inside its war room, Military Coordinator Thel SS stared at tactical displays that showed a nightmare unfolding across Alliance space. Red indicators marked destroyed facilities. Orange showed damaged infrastructure. Yellow indicated worlds under attack. The map was bleeding color like a wound that wouldn't stop spreading. "Report," she commanded, her liquid metal form rippling with barely controlled panic. A Kreth tactical officer manipulated the holographic display. "In the last 72 hours, we have lost 23 industrial complexes, 14 supply depots, and 7 military shipyards. The attacks are simultaneous across multiple sectors. Our response fleets arrived to find the targets already destroyed and the attackers gone." "How many human ships are we tracking?" Thels asked. "That's the problem, Coordinator. We're tracking over 2,000 distinct vessels. But our intelligence indicated the humans only possessed 400 ships total. Either our intelligence was catastrophically wrong, or they've been building ships at a rate we didn't think possible. Supreme Chancellor Vexnar entered the war room, his crystalline body now a dull gray that indicated exhaustion. He had not recharged properly in days, too consumed with managing the crisis. Show me the latest attack patterns. The display shifted to show recent engagement data. The attacks follow no traditional military logic, the tactical officer explained. They don't try to hold territory. They don't engage our defensive fleets unless necessary. They strike industrial targets, destroy everything of value, and retreat before we can mount an effective response. It's not warfare. It's systematic economic destruction. Vexnar studied the patterns with growing horror. They're trying to starve us. Without industrial capacity, we can't build ships. Without supply depots, we can't maintain our existing fleet. Without shipyards, we can't repair battle damage. He turned to Thelysis. How long can we sustain military operations at current loss rates? 6 months, she replied quietly. Maybe 8 if we implement severe rationing across all Alliance worlds. But Supreme Chancellor, there's something else. Something worse. She pulled up footage from a recent engagement at the Tyraxis shipyards. The video showed Alliance defense forces engaging what appeared to be human warships. But as the battle progressed, something became clear. The human ships weren't maneuvering like vessels with living crews. They moved with impossible precision, executing attack patterns that would have killed organic pilots through acceleration forces alone. They're not crewed, Thelysis said. We captured debris from one of these vessels. There are no life support systems, no crew quarters, no biological accommodations of any kind. They're automated warships controlled by artificial intelligence. The war room fell silent. Several Alliance species had experimented with artificial intelligence millennia ago, before abandoning it as too dangerous. The idea of weapons that could think and kill without organic oversight violated fundamental Alliance principles about the sanctity of conscious decision-making in warfare. How many of these machines have they deployed? Vexnar asked. We don't know. Thousands certainly. Perhaps tens of thousands. Supreme Chancellor. They're building these ships faster than we can destroy them. Every week our scouts detect new vessels emerging from hidden construction facilities. They're industrializing warfare in ways we stopped doing 10,000 years ago. On the human destroyer Vengeance, Commander Jackson Torres reviewed mission reports from the latest Reaper fleet operations. His ship was one of the few crewed vessels still operating in Alliance territory, conducting reconnaissance and coordinating the automated fleets. Around him, his crew worked with the quiet efficiency of people who knew they were constantly hours away from death. Sir, we're receiving a transmission, his communications officer announced. It's from an Alliance ship. They're requesting to speak with you directly under a temporary ceasefire flag. Torres frowned. Alliance vessels don't typically request dialogue during combat operations. What ship? They identify as the Stellar Covenant, commanded by Senior Fleet Master Corvus of the Helvar species. Torres knew the name. The Helvar had been one of the 2 species that abstained from the vote to declare war on humanity. Put them through. The view screen activated, showing a being that resembled a cross between a cephalopod and a crystalline formation. Senior Fleet Master Corvus spoke through a translation device. Commander Torres, I am contacting you in violation of Alliance protocol because I believe this war is a mistake that will destroy us all. Then surrender, Torres replied flatly. We're not interested in negotiations. I'm not offering surrender. I'm offering information. The Alliance War Council is planning something called Operation Final Dawn. They intend to use stellar collapse weapons against your home system. Torres felt his blood run cold. Stellar collapse weapons were theoretical devices that could destabilize a star, causing it to go supernova. That would kill billions. Your own Alliance banned such weapons 6,000 years ago. Desperation makes people abandon principles, Corvus said. Supreme Chancellor Vexnar has convinced the War Council that humanity must be eliminated completely. They plan to strike your sol system in 30 days. I'm telling you this because the Helvar people want no part of genocide. We abstained from the war vote. We will abstain from this atrocity as well. Why tell me? Why help us? Torres asked. Corvus's tentacles moved in a gesture that might have been sadness. Because in 5,000 years of Alliance membership, we learned that civilizations built on forced compliance eventually collapse. You were right to refuse them. We should have had your courage. Perhaps if you survive, You can build something better than what we created. The transmission ended. Torres immediately opened a secure channel to Earth. Priority Alpha communication for General Webb. The Alliance is planning to use stellar weapons against Sol system. Timeline: 30 days. On Earth, General Marcus Webb received the intelligence in his command bunker. Dr. Elena Vasquez was with him, reviewing the latest weapons development reports. "Can we stop a stellar collapse weapon?" he asked her directly. "Stop it? No. We don't have the technology to counter stellar manipulation on that scale," she replied. "But we might not need to stop it. We've been working on something." Project Exodus wasn't just about evacuating colonies. It was about evacuating Earth if necessary. Webb stared at her. "You're talking about moving the entire human population off the homeworld, not just moving them, hiding them. We've identified 47 habitable worlds in unmapped regions of space beyond Alliance territory. We've been secretly establishing colonies there for 3 years. If we implement full Exodus protocols, we can relocate 90% of Earth's population within 3 weeks. And the other 10%? Webb asked, though he already knew the answer. Volunteers, military personnel, people who choose to stay and make the Alliance believe they succeeded in killing us. Then we hit them with everything we have left. We make them think they won, and while they're celebrating, we destroy them." Webb walked to the window of his office, looking out at the mountains of Colorado. "You're asking me to abandon Earth, the birthplace of humanity, the world our entire species evolved on. I'm asking you to save humanity," Vasquez replied. "Earth is just a planet. Humanity is the people. We can always come back after we've won, but if we stay and fight conventionally, that stellar weapon will kill us all. This way we survive, we adapt. We win." Webb turned back to face her. "How many people know about the hidden colonies?" "Maybe 5,000 across all security levels. The colonies themselves are automated. The colonists think they're part of long-term expansion projects. They don't know they're actually survival bunkers for the entire species." "Activate full Exodus protocols," Webb ordered. "Begin evacuation immediately, and prepare the Prometheus protocol." Vasquez's face went pale. "Sir, Prometheus is a last resort weapon. If we use it, there's no coming back from what we become. They're planning to kill our star and everyone on our homeworld," Webb said coldly. "They stopped being the good guys the moment they made that decision. Now they get to learn what happens when you try to genocide humanity. They get Prometheus." Across human space, the evacuation began in secret. Transport ships that appeared to be carrying military supplies were actually packed with civilians. Entire cities were quietly emptied over the course of weeks. The process was disguised as wartime mobilization and population dispersal. The Alliance scouts watching human worlds saw increased activity and assumed humanity was preparing for a final desperate defense. They had no idea that humanity was preparing to vanish. Senior Fleet Master Corvus watched from his ship as the Alliance assembled its stellar weapon fleet. 50 massive vessels, each one carrying devices that could manipulate gravitational forces on a stellar scale. They were ancient weapons, built during the Consolidation Wars and then sealed away as too terrible to use. Now they were being prepared to murder an entire star system. He sent one final transmission to Commander Torres. "The fleet launches in 15 days. May your species find the survival that mine lacks the courage to seek. Farewell, humans. You deserved better than this galaxy gave you." The Alliance stellar weapon fleet departed for Sol system with 5,000 escort vessels. Supreme Chancellor Vexnar traveled with them aboard the Eternal Harmony. He had personally ordered this operation, convinced that eliminating humanity's homeworld would break their spirit and end the war. Military Coordinator Thelsess stood beside him on the bridge as they approached Sol system. "Supreme Chancellor, our scouts report unusual readings from the system. Population density appears significantly lower than expected." "They're evacuating," Vexnar said. "They know we're coming. It doesn't matter. Even if they save some civilians, destroying Earth will eliminate their government, their military command, their industrial base. The war will be over." The fleet emerged at the edge of Sol system. Ahead of them, Earth glowed blue and green, seemingly defenseless. The stellar weapons began their startup sequences, preparing to inject gravitational anomalies into the sun that would cause it to collapse and then explode. That's when humanity sprang their trap. The Reaper fleets, that had been operating across Alliance territory, suddenly reversed course. All of them. Every single automated warship stopped attacking industrial targets and began converging on Sol system. They emerged from faster-than-light travel in waves, thousands of ships materializing in formations that surrounded the Alliance fleet. Commander Torres broadcast a message on all frequencies from his flagship. You came to kill our home. You brought weapons meant to murder our star and everyone in our solar system. You declared genocide. Now you face the consequences. The Reaper fleets attacked with mechanical precision. They didn't aim for the escort vessels. They aimed for the stellar weapons, recognizing them as the primary threat. Automated warships rammed into the massive weapon platforms, detonating their reactors in suicide attacks that destroyed both vessels. The Alliance escorts tried to defend the weapons, but they were outnumbered 10-1. Human ships that were hit kept fighting until they were completely disabled. Ships that lost weapons switched to ramming attacks. There was no fear, no hesitation, no mercy. On the Eternal Harmony, Vexnar watched in horror as all 50 stellar weapon platforms were destroyed in less than an hour. This is impossible. We brought 5,000 ships. How many ships do the humans have? According to sensor counts, over 15,000 vessels are currently engaging us, Thels reported, her liquid metal form churning with terror. Supreme Chancellor, we need to retreat. We're losing ships at a rate of 50 per minute. But retreat was not simple. The human Reaper fleets had surrounded the Alliance formation. Ships that tried to break away were pursued and destroyed. The battle became a slaughter. Automated warships hunting down organic crews with algorithmic efficiency. Vexnar's crystalline body had turned completely black, a color his species displayed only in the face of certain death. Send a message to the Grand Assembly. Tell them the stellar weapon operation has failed. Tell them humanity has more ships than we ever imagined. Tell them. A Reaper ship rammed into the Eternal Harmony's bridge section. The impact tore through the shields and hull, exposing the command center to space. Vexnar's last thought before the vacuum claimed him was a simple realization. They had never had a chance. Humanity had been preparing for total war since the day they were discovered. The Alliance had been preparing for peace enforcement. The outcome had been inevitable. The Battle of Sol lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 4,700 Alliance ships had been destroyed. The remaining 300 surrendered, their commanders shocked into submission by the totality of their defeat. Commander Torres accepted the surrender personally. He ordered the surviving ships to be escorted to the outer system and placed under guard. Then he opened a channel to General Webb on Earth. Sir, the system is secure. Enemy fleet neutralized. Stellar weapons destroyed. We held them. Casualties? Webb asked. We lost approximately 8,000 Reaper units and 23 crewed vessels. The Vengeance took damage but remains operational. There was a long pause. Then Webb said quietly, Good work, Commander. Now comes the hard part. Activate Prometheus. It's time to show the Alliance what extinction looks like. Dr. Vasquez stood beside Webb in the command bunker. Prometheus launch authorization confirmed. All systems are green. Sir, once we do this, we cross a line. The galaxy will fear us for generations. Good, Webb said. Fear is the only thing that will keep them from trying this again. They wanted to make an example of us. Instead, we'll make an example of them. The Prometheus weapons launched from hidden facilities across Sol system. They were unlike anything the Alliance had encountered. Each weapon was a self-replicating nanomachine swarm, programmed with a single directive. Disassemble. Alliance military infrastructure at the molecular level. The swarm spread through Alliance space like a plague. They ignored civilian populations and non-military facilities. But every warship, every weapons platform, every military shipyard they encountered was reduced to its component atoms. The swarms reproduced using the materials they harvested, growing exponentially as they spread. The Alliance tried to fight them. Energy weapons had no effect on enemies the size of molecules. Kinetic weapons couldn't target objects too small to see. Nuclear explosions only provided more energy for the swarms to harvest and convert into additional copies. Within 3 months, the Alliance military ceased to exist as a functional force. Every warship had been consumed. Every weapons stockpile had been disassembled. The Alliance Council, now meeting on a civilian station since Zenthar had fallen to human occupation, faced the reality of total military defeat. The surviving Alliance species began seeking separate peace agreements with humanity. The Helvar were first, offering full surrender in exchange for protection from the nanomachine swarms. The Sindathi followed. Then the quorum. One by one, species abandoned the alliance to save themselves. Military Coordinator Thels S., now the highest-ranking Alliance military officer still alive, traveled to Earth under a white flag of truce. She met with General Webb in the same command bunker where the war had been planned. General Webb, she said, her liquid metal form showing colors that indicated defeat and submission. On behalf of what remains of the Galactic Alliance, I am authorized to offer unconditional surrender. We accept all terms you wish to impose. Webb studied her for a long moment. Your Chancellor Vexnar tried to kill our star. He tried to commit genocide against my entire species. Do you understand what that means to us? I understand you have every right to destroy us in return, Thels replied. I'm asking you not to. Not for our sake, but for the sake of the billions of innocent civilians who never voted for this war, the species that abstained, the populations that had no say in military decisions. We're not going to exterminate you, Webb said, surprising her. We're not interested in genocide. We're interested in survival. Your alliance will be dissolved. Every species will govern itself independently. We will maintain a peacekeeping fleet to ensure no one tries to rebuild a forced coalition. You will all live under what we call the Terran Mandate. You can do whatever you want with your own worlds, but you will never again try to force others to join you. Thels felt something like relief wash through her. And the Prometheus weapons? Will be deactivated once all Alliance military assets have been accounted for and destroyed. We don't want to rule you. We just want you to leave us alone. The formal surrender was signed 3 weeks later. Of the original 73 Alliance species, 47 survived the war. The other 26 had suffered complete collapse when their civilizations couldn't sustain themselves without Alliance support. Their populations scattered to refugee colonies, their governments dissolved, their histories reduced to cautionary tales. 30 years after the war ended, Commander Jackson Torres, now Admiral Torres, stood on the observation deck of the Terran Mandate headquarters and watched ships from a dozen species dock at the orbital platform. They came seeking trade agreements, defense pacts, cultural exchanges. They came voluntarily. Beside him stood a young officer, Lieutenant Sarah Chen, daughter of Dr. Elena Vasquez and granddaughter of the man who had planned humanity's survival. Admiral, do you think we did the right thing? So many species were destroyed, so many lives lost. Torres thought about the question for a long time. They declared war on us because we wanted to be free. They brought 25,000 ships to force us into submission. They tried to kill our son. We didn't want this war. We just wanted to exist on our own terms. But when they forced us to fight, we fought with everything we had. Every weapon, every tactic, every ounce of determination our species could muster. He turned to face the young officer. History will judge whether we were right or wrong. But history will remember this. Humanity refused to surrender. We refused to be conquered. We refuse to let anyone dictate our fate. That's who we are. That's who we've always been. And the galaxy learned what happens when you try to take that away from us. Below them, Earth rotated slowly, its blue oceans and green continents unchanged by the war that had raged across the stars. Humanity had survived. They had adapted. And in surviving, they had become something the galaxy had never seen before. A species that had been pushed to the absolute edge of extinction and had responded by pushing back so hard that they broke an empire that had lasted 15,000 years. The Galactic Alliance had declared war on humanity to make an example of them. Instead, humanity had made an example of the Alliance. They had shown the galaxy that some species would rather burn down civilization than accept chains, that some beings valued freedom more than peace, that some creatures, when threatened with extinction, would trigger extinction in return. The war was over. Humanity had won, but the victory came with a cost that would echo through the centuries. The galaxy was free, but it was free because humanity had proven they were willing to destroy everything to remain independent. They had answered the Alliance's declaration with extinction-level retaliation, and the galaxy would never forget the lesson. The stars shone down on a changed cosmos. In the darkness between them, the Reaper fleets remained on standby, silent guardians waiting to be activated if anyone ever again made the mistake of threatening humanity's freedom. The humans had spoken. The universe had listened, and humanity finally was left alone.